We're going to start in just a minute.
Are you going to talk tonight?
Yeah. You know me.
The time is now 5:30 on December 2nd. The Community Development Committee meeting is hereby called to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Chairman Hayes,
Present.
Alderman Felix,
Present.
Alderman Florian,
Present.
Alderman Donenworth,
Present.
Alderman Martinez.
Present.
All right, thank you. Item C on the agenda, may I please have a motion and a second for approval of the November 4th, 2024 minutes from the Community Development Committee meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Donenworth,
Aye.
Alderman Martinez,
Aye.
Alderman Florian,
Aye.
Alderman Felix,
Aye.
Chairman Hayes.
Aye, motion passes. All right, agenda item number 2 is audience time. I know we have some people here that wish to speak. I would ask that anybody who would like to speak about any of the items on the agenda tonight line up on this side of the room, and we will give everyone an opportunity to speak. And in fact, I think what I'm going to do is, if you're here to speak on the proposed development of the Chick-fil-A, just stay seated for the time being. I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to speak. Anyone else that wishes to speak on any of the other items on the agenda, you guys can line up. Some of you guys know the drill. You can step up. Please don't touch the microphone and state your full name for the record. Ready when you are.
I am Tom Capine, Capine Studio, 122 Washington Street. I would address the board last month, and I'm dismayed by the fact that this is about the identity sculpture. I'm dismayed by the reason for you delaying tonight's process because you needed to get the bids on the full word Waukegan. You have to understand that's not the reason that you stopped the proceeding. Many of you had a question of, is it really art? And that's what I understood you left here with. Sure, you can ask the question, what would it cost for all the letters to be Waukegan, but you weren't talking about art. And many of you question what that is. Let me give you an idea of what that is. Art inspires you. Did those letters inspire you? It inspires you to do things. Did it inspire you to make and do something yourself? Did it touch you in such a way, a personal way that you've never been touched before? Do those letters do that? Those are just a few things that art does. I'm telling you that you're wasting $100,000 on something that has no credibility for art, does not meet the grant as is worded, which says sculpture. It does not say letters. And it's a farce to think that by painting those letters, by having some artists come in and paint the letters with different things, that's childish. You cannot fall for this. The question was, one person said, well, what's our timeline? You have to have the money approved by January 1st. I understand that. But another person that represented you said it had to be completed That was an attempt to force you to make a decision that night. I believe that's the wrong thing to do. I believe this is the wrong idea about art, and I will be happy to give you an opportunity to come to my studio and find out what art really is. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, everybody. I'm David Dallison. I live at 310 West Ridgeland Avenue. I came here to talk tonight about the Airbnb, but my friend Tom here stood up, and I'll address that as well. I've been in Waukegan for 18 years. I'm a professional artist. I show nationally and internationally. So I've seen a lot of that world of art, and I've traveled to many countries to paint, and I see how cities and towns represent themselves through nomenclature. What he's saying, Waukegan wants to be seen as a somewhat artistic town. We want people to feel like they arrive here and it's something a little bit different. Why would you have a generic sign up like that? It doesn't seem appropriate to me at all. But anyway, that's one issue. The other issue is the Airbnb. I make my living as a painter, and I'm on the road a lot, and I have choices to stay at Motel 8s and Holiday Inns, etc. And I always choose Airbnbs. And I've had Airbnbs in India, Morocco, Vietnam. I could name several other places. And then throughout America, I've stayed in probably 10 different cities at Airbnbs. And what's great about them is they give me access to neighborhoods and cultures that I would not have access to otherwise. When you go into a hotel, you see a concierge, you go to your room, you go back down to you go out to your work, and you come back. It's a rather impersonal experience. Airbnb offers Waukegan an opportunity to open ourselves up. We're a stigmatized town. Every time I say I live in Waukegan, they go, oh, I've never been there, I don't want to go there. I'm like, well, I wish there was a reason for people to come. Airbnb can be just one of those steps in that sequence. I just want to make sure I cover what I wanted to say. And also, when I go to my Airbnbs, we have an exchange in advance. I let them know I'd like to stay for these dates. They accept me. In accepting me, they see a biography on me that's been written by previous landlords. And I have a really good biography. And everyone that I ever go to this says, oh my gosh, I would take you in a second, because the last person you stayed with said, oh, he was great, he was interesting, we had this exchange. So it's not like it's some mystery thing. Hotels have a hard time saying no to anybody. But Airbnbs, you can be a very discerning landlord. So there's no reason for responsible landlords not to be able to be in control of who stays in their places and fostering a healthy community. In the case of these guys, who I know have several properties, another big benefit is that they're restoring houses. And this town, having houses upkept well, having nice landscaping, having a good feel to it, it's really, really important. So that's another fringe benefit in this case. So anyway, there you go. That's my 2.5 minutes worth.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Steve Hill, and first of all, I want to thank you guys for slowing down the review process on the short-term rental ordinance and giving it the time and attention it deserves. I know many were surprised at the speed in which this ordinance came up with minimal, if any, review and comment by aldermen and their constituents. This is a vital topic to the citizens and business owners of Waukegan, and it deserves the time and attention to get it done right the first time. Simply stated, what we have here is a registration and licensing issue. Register your property, pay your licensing fee, it's simple as that. As Alderman Hayes said aptly in a prior meeting, let's not create a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. At the November 18th meeting, we heard from Ann Lynn, the former Waukegan City Attorney, regarding her insights into the proposed short-term rental ordinance. She specifically addressed the 1,000-foot regulation and how it has been used in the past. In section 14-307 of the Waukegan City Code of Ordinances, it states that no adult entertainment establishment shall be permitted to be located within 1,000 feet of any other adult entertainment establishment. I'm sure many of us struggle to find the similarities between Airbnb homes and strip clubs. You should have a page of reviews in front of you. As you read these, do these sound like patrons of strip clubs, or do they sound like families who have come to Waukegan to celebrate the achievements of their sons and daughters before they ship off to protect our country? Let's see. In the current draft of the ordinance, city staff further complicates things by assigning different distances to different zoning types in an apparent effort to lessen the restriction, but in reality, it's still there. The staff's restrictions, while good-intentioned, seem to be overzealous in reach. Many are puzzled regarding the motivation and including any location restrictions. No neighboring communities has this. If they are worried about the character of a neighborhood, would they rather see the streets lined with meticulously maintained houses or dilapidated buildings run by out-of-town landlords? I had a conversation with Mayor Taylor recently, and she readily admits that the city has no idea how many, if any, complaints are being received on short-term rentals. I would guess that there are many more complaints on long-term rentals, yet they currently have fewer restrictions than the proposed ordinance we're looking at today. Without any data to back up these restrictions, why include them at all? The mayor's office has told us that the ordinance can be amended down the road to remove restrictions, but that seems counterintuitive. Again, putting the cart before the horse and creating a disadvantage for the homeowner. I urge you to kill this proposed short-term rental ordinance and simply incorporate short-term rentals into the existing framework for rental properties. Let's not reinvent the wheel and burden city staff with added responsibility of monitoring excessive restrictions. Make Waukegan live up to its name, the city of progress, not the city of overzealous restrictions. Let's not create a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Rebecca Solano. I spoke a couple weeks ago as well. I'm a local real estate investor. I'm here to express concerns about the proposed short-term rental ordinance. While I understand the intention behind it, this ordinance places unnecessary and unfair burdens on property owners. Short-term rental owners should be included in the existing rental licensing system. I appreciate the changes that George Bridges emailed out on Saturday, but they don't address all of the significant issues with the proposal. We're not talking about anything new here. Furnished rentals have existed for centuries, with the first vacation home dating back to 1624. Even in Waukegan, boarding houses once served a purpose very similar to today's short-term rentals, providing temporary accommodations for those in need. Whether a property is rented for 3 days, 3 months, or 3 years, it's still a rental property. Separate regulations for short-term rentals are unnecessary. Another concern is the ordinance's rigidity. Stays vary in length, and I often have furnished rental homes where they're vacant in between longer tenants. So I might have someone stay for 3 months, 6 months. Well, now my next person's not coming for a few more weeks. So I have a couple weeks that I need to fill. I don't want a vacant property, so I list my property on Airbnb to fill the gap. Would this new rule penalize me if I just have rental licenses for my properties? This kind of restriction creates confusion for property owners like myself who simply want to keep properties rented. Additionally, I do have concerns about a few other aspects. The 50% building restriction limits flexibility for property owners, reducing potential income from properties that meet safety and licensing standards. Just, if I have a rental license, the code enforcement officers or the city inspectors come over, they check everything. It doesn't matter if it meets the standards, we shouldn't be restricting the 50% rule. Same thing with the camera requirement. That's just unfair for short-term rentals because cameras are not mandated for long-term rentals. I do have some cameras at some of my properties, but I'm not actually capturing problems with the tenants. I've captured problems with a tenant's car being stolen or gunshots in the neighborhood. It's nothing that's happening in my properties. Kind of like Steve said, that the tenants are different who are coming for temporary reasons. The 6% hotel tax is another unfair burden. Short-term rentals are rental properties, just like long-term rentals. They should not be taxed differently. Short-term rentals offer flexibility. They bring economic benefits to our city. They serve a wide range of people, families relocating, business travelers, tourists. Just over-regulating these properties risks discouraging investment and growth in Waukegan like we all want. So I urge you to just consider keeping it the same.
Thank you.
Evening, everyone. I'm Chad Bauer. I live on North Sheridan Road. I've been following the Airbnb rental issue closely for the past several weeks as I reside in close proximity to many of the properties. I understand that Navy graduations bring in approximately $45 million to the local community. Putting unwarranted restrictions on Airbnb owners is tantamount to turning away money from our local economy and businesses. If families aren't staying in Waukegan, The likelihood of them dining, drinking, shopping, and spending their money here is very unlikely. Just think of the restaurants, bars, art galleries, grocery stores, and others that will miss out on this business. If there are currently no issues with Airbnb units being within 1,000 feet of each other, why penalize the owners and stall business development and growth in our great city? Please reconsider this proposed ordinance by eliminating it and simply adding the Airbnb rentals to the existing rental ordinance. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Todd Johnson. I'm a resident of Waukegan. There's an old adage that says, if it's not broken, let's not fix it. And we've heard that Alderman Hayes has said, let's not create solutions for problems that do not exist. This has direct application this evening as we discuss the proposed short-term rental ordinance that's been drafted and put before us by the mayor's staff. While regulation is a good thing, and you've heard me say that I encourage regulation for short-term rentals, over-regulation can be a bad thing for all. Waukegan is a very large city with a diverse population. I believe that many people strive to own a home here, and we encourage home ownership in the city, even though it's only currently at 48.9%. We're now going to try to tell people and homeowners what they can and cannot do with their properties. For example, there is a retiring couple here that lives in Waukegan. They've lived here for over 40 years, and they're looking to retire south in the winter months, but they want to maintain a residence here in Waukegan for the summer months to come back and visit family, as many of us would like to stay connected to family and be close. If they want to rent out their home on a short-term basis, but there's already an Airbnb within a few couple blocks away, then they're out of luck, as said by the current ordinance. The home becomes financially burdensome, and they're forced to sell, all because of too much regulation. I think we can all agree that that is not a good thing. The 1,000 feet location restriction outlined in the mayor's proposed ordinance would seem like a violation of a homeowner's civil liberties, especially when there's absolutely no data to support any issues with density. Imagine you have a circle and you take 2,000 feet diameter within your home in the middle of the circle. That's quite a few homeowners that would not be allowed to rent out their home on a short-term basis if they decided to down the road. This is not fair or a balanced approach to government regulation. According to data from the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, there are approximately 32,906 living units in Waukegan for the year of 2022. The mayor's staff suggested that there's approximately 74 to 76 active Airbnb units. I fail to see the argument for putting any kind of location restrictions at this point. That's less than a 1% density. Let's do the right thing for the citizens and for the businesses of Waukegan. As we've heard, this generates substantial amount of tax revenue and sales revenue for the city and these businesses. And strike down this proposed short-term rental ordinance and simply combine it with the existing rental ordinance that's already on the books. Thank you.
Hey, good evening. My name is, good evening, council. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Emily DeCellis. I'm an active duty service member and a recruit division commander at Great Lakes. I'm here to represent myself specifically, not the Navy, so please understand that this is my opinion, how I feel, and not the Navy. I'm here on behalf of the Airbnb short-term rental ordinance, and I want to just kind of bring some facts over to you guys to kind of consider. Waukegan, North Chicago, this area has a really strong tie to Navy families. I mean, I work at the drill hall and I see families and I work with the recruits and I see them day in and day out, and they heavily rely on Airbnbs. I'm also in the process of turning my home into an Airbnb, and there's a couple of military families down the road on Hickory Street that are also considering it as well. This is a problem for me because if we pass the ordinance, I'm now in a position where I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to pay my mortgage when I separate after 11 years of service. I've decided to stay in the Waukegan area, and so this is a bit of a concern for me. But what I really want you guys to take away from this is that we graduate about 46,000 recruits annually, and we have about 1,200 families that come to graduations on good days, right? And they use Airbnb. I mean, the families, we have between 4 to 6 people, sometimes more than that, that come to graduations, and they're not looking at hotels. They're looking at Airbnbs. What is the most financially able for my family to be able to come out and to stay in a house or instead of using a hotel? So I really strongly recommend that you guys look at this and say, you know what, this hasn't been a problem before. Allow us to have that greater tie with the community because we bring in a lot of money, and it's an opportunity for our Navy family, my colleagues and people like that to be able to come out and say, you know what, I want to see what Waukegan has to offer. Okay, so please strongly consider, removing that part of it, the 1,000 feet distance, because it affects myself, it affects other military families that are just trying to be able to ensure that our properties are paid for if we deploy or if we decide to invest within it, because we have that right to do so. And, for our military families too, right? Allowing them the opportunity to be able to have a home, to be able to stay in somewhere that's close and tied within the community and not just a hotel room that's like extremely more expensive. So please consider that. There's many more benefits with that, but that is the biggest one that I really just wanted to emphasize to you guys. So that's all I really have for this moment at the moment, but thank you guys so much for your time. Appreciate it.
I will remind Alderman, some of the things that they're talking about have been updated in your packages that you've all been briefed on. Those are things that you can amend. You can do, those were suggestions that were put out by staff. For instance, the distance has been changed to 500 for high-density properties and 1,000 to where homes are spread out more. So that's just one of the changes, but there have been many that you have received briefings of. So I'm not quite sure everybody here has seen those. So, that's your starting point. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to everybody who came up and spoke. All right, I know that there are some individuals here to speak on other topics that are on the agenda, so we will do that now during audience time. If it's my understanding, maybe there's two camps here, but anybody who's willing to or wants to speak on the proposed development in North Point Boulevard, now is your opportunity. It's my understanding that the developer has a presentation. We'll give you an opportunity to make that presentation. We have the physical copies. So what we don't want to do is let time get too far afield. So we'll give you 5 minutes for the presentation and then 3 minutes to speak. We will also give some of the business owners along the same corridor the same amount of time to speak. And then when the agenda item comes up, aldermen will have an opportunity to ask you questions. And when they ask the questions, we just ask that you come back up, reintroduce yourself, and answer those questions.
Alderman Hayes,
Yes.
it would also be appropriate to do that when the agenda item is called.
Can we just do that instead?
Yeah,
Rather than during?
At committee, we can definitely do that.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. So.
Okay, that'll actually make it a little bit more seamless. So then we can just tackle this all at once. Thank you, council. With that said, we will move on to old business. Can I get a first and a second for agenda item 3A?
So moved.
Second.
First by Alderwoman Florian, a second by Alderman Donilworth. Agenda item 3A is an ordinance amending chapters 14 and 20 of the Waukegan Code of Ordinances regarding short-term rentals. Substitute ordinance included. Are there any questions?
Alderman Hayes, if I could run through, I have done a quick summary presentation of this that does detail what was changed, which may be useful for the discussion.
Yeah, that'd be great. Before you jump into that, I'll take questions from anybody on the committee first, and then for those of you that are not on the committee, we will address your questions after that.
So if we could go to the next slide, please. So this is a substitute ordinance. It's responding to concerns that were submitted by members of the public, both directly to the Chief of Staff and the Mayor, and also those that were addressed during public comment at prior meetings. A lot of those comments came from short-term rental operators, and then also from members of the City Council. There was an ordinance a revised ordinance that was included on board docs with a cover memo that describes these changes, which the mayor has asked be kind of substituted as the one for consideration tonight. If the committee recommends either for or against, or basically takes a vote on this ordinance tonight, the City Council would take it up for consideration at the December 16th, 2024 meeting. So we're going to run through pretty quickly some of the big changes that are included here. Now, these are changes from the resolution that was previously proposed. If you look on board docs, there is a file that actually shows it in both a clean version and then a redline version that shows what's been struck and what's kept in. This is a summary of that. So the first item that has been removed completely was the notice to neighbors. This is something that was brought up in the that was brought up by some of the people making public comments. And then also staff noted that the enforcement of this would be rather difficult to do. And confirming, whether there were affidavits that were made that all notices were being provided. In the interest of facilitating applications, this item was completely removed. Next slide, please. One item that was added, and this was added at the request of an alderman, was that a 24-hour contact be provided. One of the issues, as was mentioned in public comment, is that in some cases, the owners either do not live in Waukegan or may be away from Waukegan for part of the year. So if there is an issue, the application would require that a contact person that could be reached locally to address any enforcement issues or problems be provided. Next slide. We've also clarified the minimum rental period. Originally, it was for 48 hours. Now, as anyone who's rented in a hotel knows, that sometimes you can't check in until 4 p.m. and you've got to be out of there by 11 a.m. Airbnb and VRBO may have different regulations, but often people do not stay for a full 24-hour period. So to clarify, the minimum stay would be 2 nights. The rationale behind this is really to avoid the one-night stays that are associated with party homes. That's really the kind of instances where you tend to have issues. Next slide, please. Location restriction. One of the big changes that was made for the substitute ordinance impacts both the location restriction and the cap on the number of units. As was mentioned, there are probably between 76 and 100 short-term rental units operating right now that we can find. The mayor did not express an interest in shutting down any of those, assuming that they are qualifying and well-run. So there would be an initial registration period, which would start at the beginning of this year, and we had put originally through January 30th. There was some request that that kind of grandfather or safe harbor period be extended through March 30th or March 31st, where if you have an existing short-term rental, you register it in that period, there is no distance requirement, there's no separation requirement. Thereafter, if there are new short-term rentals that are coming in, that there would be a requirement of 500 feet for any new ones that come in our denser residential districts. And then in the R1 district, which has a very large lot area, that it would be a 1,000 foot. One of the questions that has occurred about why you would have any separation requirement is that there is a concern about density. Although the most common concern about short-term rentals is that they do take rentals that would otherwise be available for long-term occupancy or even purchase off the market. And so what this is trying to address is to find a balance between maintaining those units that are operating right now as short-term rentals, and then also putting a limit in the future so there's a rational amount of growth. Next slide, please. Okay. Removes cap on the number of short-term rentals. Previously, there was a cap on this. We have removed that and said that any amount of short-term rentals that come in and that register in the safe harbor period, there will be no cap. Thereafter, the city does not impose a cap, but we are putting in the ordinance that we reserve the right to do so. Any short-term rental that is continuously registered from the safe harbor period would not be subject to that cap. Next slide, please. Remove special parking requirements. Although there were some aldermen who felt very strongly about this and some staff who felt very strongly about this, there was previously a requirement that there be one off-street hard surface parking space provided for each bedroom. There was some discussion about maybe reducing that down for each unit. But in the end, we were directed to remove that completely. One of the key things to keep in mind, though, is that if someone is parking off-street, on-street without a Waukegan sticker, they're subject to both ticketing without a city sticker, and also they have to comply with the alternate street parking requirements. So it may be, for a host, it may be in your guest's best interest to free up the driveway for them. Next slide, please. The penalty for violations is reduced. The original draft of the ordinance included a pretty significant fine of $5,000 per violation. That has been reduced down to $750 per violation. That is the standard kind of top of the range violation for most offenses in our code, so this brings that in line. Next slide, please. Fees have been adjusted. The initial inspection fee has been raised from $25 to $50 per unit, but the actual annual license fee has been reduced from $300 per unit to $100 per unit. The key here is that the burden is not really on the renewals. The burden is on staff to do the initial inspection. So that initial application fee should be a little bit higher to deal with staff time, but assuming that these are maintained in good order, the $300 fee was determined to be too high and not really in conjunction with, or not really having a nexus with the annual renewal. Next slide, please. Okay. The only other thing that I would note is that what this does keep constant is the application of the hotel motel tax to short-term rental units. Both mayor and staff see no reason why these units, which are rented very similar, in a similar manner to hotel and motel rooms, would not be subject to that. And so even if there's a desire to get rid of or change some of the proposals that have been put forth in the substitute ordinance, there is a recommendation that the application of the hotel motel tax to these units, which is something that all the platforms, including Airbnb, VRBO, know how to do. They know how to apply custom tax rates for every municipality through their booking processes. It's something that it's not an additional administrative burden.
Thank you, Council. I really appreciate that. And thank you to staff for all of your hard work and working with the aldermen and the community to take our consideration and comments and work with the ordinance to modify it from its initial form. Okay, questions regarding old business agenda item A. Alderman Felix, did I see your hand go up?
Yeah. In terms of, I like the fact that we put the ability in the future to, if we need to put a cap on there. I think that solves a lot of the issues where, you know, we want to make sure that people have the ability to buy residential homes. But I think currently it's not an issue right now. So I like the fact that you guys added that. That's why I think that 1,000 feet or the 500 feet part there should be removed. I think that that solves that issue.
So your proposal is to remove the geographic restriction?
Yes.
Altogether?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have a question? Okay, Alderman Guzman.
Okay, yes, I'm not in this committee, but I think all the aldermen should really look into this in this committee and propose an amendment. I would, if I were you guys, I'd mirror long-term rentals with exception to about 4 or 5 exceptions. Obviously, an inspection, 1, must have a license. 2, tax must be added onto the property when it's rented. I thought it was at 5%, but somebody mentioned 6%. It is what it is. Hotels around the world or properties do this as a resort fee or anything else. It should be added on. 3, if possible, a background check. We don't want murderers or whatever into these things. I'm not sure if it's possible, but I know somebody recommended this to me, so I told them I would ask and see if it could be added. For the 24-hour contact for emergencies basis of any issues coming up or anything, any problems, somebody can be contacted at a moment's notice. And 5, temporary parking sticker. I don't know if it would be included, $5, $10 just for a day or whatever, 2 days, so they will not be ticketed on our streets of any kind. Other than that, let them do business and not let a few monopolize the market with 1,000 or 500-foot restrictions. We can look this over after a year and see if we have to do a cap on this, just like Alderman Felix suggested. We also just don't want this all turning into a short-term leases and long-term, and then nobody can buy homes or anything in our city. Other than that, I feel it should mirror long-term rentals and move on from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Guzman. Alderwoman Florian?
Thank you, Chair. I like a lot of these changes we made. I think we listened to the community and came up with some good middle ground. Nobody's ever going to be totally happy with this, let's be honest. I am totally in favor of keeping the distance requirement, and I'll explain why. Recently, my neighbor next door came over and borrowed our wheelbarrow because he was doing a project. If I have an Airbnb, I'm not his neighbor. I'm someone different every couple days coming in there, you know, and that's what neighbors do for each other. My other neighbor needed his child picked up from school one day, and my husband's retired, so they called us and said, hey, can Al go pick up Owen at school for us, because we can't get there? So he went and got him from school and brought him home. If we don't have neighbors, we don't have those connections anymore. So I totally support Airbnbs. I know they're doing wonderful things, but I think we need to keep some kind of control over it so we don't have streets just full of them. We still have affordable housing in Waukegan. I think we need to concentrate on keeping that available to people. People that do these Airbnbs are often able to pay more for the properties than the average Waukegan citizen does. So I think having a little bit of restriction is a good idea, just to see how things roll. We were just starting this, right? We didn't even know this problem. Well, it's not really a problem. This situation existed a year ago. So I think keeping some sort of distance requirement is a very good idea.
Anyone else from the committee or on the dais that has a comment about this agenda item? Alderman Felix?
Also, the 48-hour restriction, because as far as I know, because I spoke to some of the people that own the Airbnbs, the app itself asks you for an ID. I mean, you know, so they do their, you know, their due diligence in terms of the app. And people that come, people do, this is very normal. People come for one day. You know, they don't stay 2 days, you know. A lot of people to get hotels for one day. So I think the 48-hour or 2-day, you're also eliminating a lot of potential business for a lot of these Airbnb owners. So I think that's also, you know, if you're worried about parties and having issues like that, they get also like not, I don't know if it's blocked or, but when you turn in your ID, you get restricted from using the Airbnb app again if you do these kind of like parties what you're not supposed to, or you violate the terms that the Airbnb owners have. So that eliminates that part right there. The business is supposed to be, it's a business, so the app itself, these apps have things in place for these things not to happen. So if we're adding the 48-hour, the limit in terms of the distance, you know, it kind of affects them. That's why I understand why they're here, because it affects them a lot. Again, we have the ability to put a cap in the future if that becomes a problem. I think that solves the biggest issue in terms of, you know, what we're looking at. This is a new it's not a problem. This is a new issue, not a new thing that we're wanting to regulate a little bit. The things that we need to regulate is to make sure it's safe, so that's why we have inspections, make sure they have their fee, they pay their fee when they register, and also the tax. I agree with the tax, and it's not even that we're gonna do an extra work, like Stu said. It's already built into the app as well, so I think what I think is that keep it as simple as possible, and if we need to add more, then we'll add more, but not right off the bat put all these restrictions on there.
Mayor?
I'm not sure, Alderman Guzman, what you were talking about with background checks. Are you talking about the people who are renting it?
Yes, resident asked me if we do background, or if Airbnbs does background checks or not, but if it can be, to add it on. I talked about.
Just as a question, on the owner and operator of the unit, or the tenant, or basically the guests?
The guests, I guess it would be, I don't know if it's possible or not, but a couple residents asked me, so I said I would bring it up.
Generally speaking, they don't. So that, I don't know how we would regulate that. As far as comparing this to long-term, we will be overhauling our long-term rental agreements too. Some of that, it's easier to do the short-term and then go to the long-term because we have to address absentee landlords and all of that, and there's a much bigger long-term rental market than there is short-term, so that's why we started with short-term, but you will see a lot of overlap coming. So that's why we started here. But long-term rentals will be changing as well, and one of the biggest things you'll see is we will need to have a Waukegan person or a local person that is there when you have an absentee landlord. So we will want that to keep track of, rather than trying to track down people that could be anywhere. As far as concerns with the, we want to make sure that we don't open the door for party homes because it does happen. And as far as knowing how many people we have, we were able to check Airbnb and Vrbo. We were not able to check. There are other places that do short-term rentals that are not considered Airbnb on websites. And we do have some of those. They're a little more common in certain parts of Waukegan than others, but not everybody goes through those too. So we don't really have a good number. We just have had, and this started way back in '22, and I won't call out the aldermen who have started some of this conversation, but one of the complaints was that, hey, the police showed up for a noise violation and the owners that they thought were there were actually not there and they were renting it out and nobody knew that. So it actually started in '22 that we started looking at this and how do we work this and massage it and get it to the place that we're at today. Again, we are always, sometimes we make ordinances and they're on the books for 40, 50 years and they're no longer relevant. I like to keep the door open that we can always revamp this. If we find that, you know, we want to make the cap or shorten the distance, whatever, we can do that. But we need to start somewhere, and that's how this started. So we've been looking into this since '22. Any questions?
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick comment. Oh, Alderman Donilworth, go ahead.
Yeah, looking at this, and we've been talking to a lot of people on the phone, and everybody seems to, you know, get the consensus that if it's not broken, you don't need to fix it. So I'm opposed to the 500 feet and the 1,000-foot restriction. That should be removed. And then if we end up with problems, then we can deal with it later. But let's open this up and let's let these people conduct their business. If they're close, they're close. You deal with a problem later. You don't have to pre-deal with a problem.
Thank you, Alderman Donilworth. All right, we're getting tight on time. Alderman Martinez.
Same sentiments as Alderman Donilworth. I mean, if it isn't broke, they're trying to fix it. You guys are the professionals. You guys been doing it for a very long time. So I think that leave it the way it is, you know, and maybe we should monitor it. But again, if it isn't fixed, if it isn't broken, don't attempt to fix it. So I heard the testimonies of many of you guys spoke from the heart because you guys are experts at this. You guys live this every day. This is part of your lives. So I feel that it should just be left alone for now. And then if we need to revisit it, then let's go ahead and revisit it.
Thanks, Alderman Martinez. All right, I'm just going to add in quickly, and then I think we'll have to figure out what we're going to do with this, because it doesn't sound like we have a consensus on the proposed ordinance. I, too, am not in favor of the geographic restriction. At this point, I don't see a need for it. I do think that there should be licensing and registration around this. We need to know what we're dealing with and how many of these exist in the community. To Alderman Guzman's point, I think if we start to create carve-outs within the long-term ordinance to satisfy this ordinance, we compromise the integrity of the long-term ordinance, even if it's about to change. So it should be a standalone ordinance. I agree, like I said, registration, the licensing fee, I think those are reasonable. The tax, I understand the basis for the tax. You have to have a penalty imposed so that it has some teeth. I like the 24-hour contact in place and the 48-hour restriction. I think one of the service we can do to the rest of the community as it relates to these rentals is to ensure that we are not setting up a platform for party houses, which could very easily happen on a 24-hour rental. And we just don't want to set the stage for that. So that's a long way of saying that I too am opposed to the geographic restriction. If anybody would like to propose an amendment to this, we can take that up, I think, by motion.
Should we send it back and be revised, or do you want to do an amendment tonight?
So just yeah, procedurally, you have a few choices. You could ask for it to be amended and to come back to the committee, the Community Development Committee. You could suggest an amendment to the substitute ordinance. What I had heard most often was removal of the location restrictions, and I don't know if there was full consensus on the other things. We can do a revised version and bring that to the City Council on the 16th. It's really whatever the committee recommends. If the committee wants to see the revised ordinance that would be the first day, that would be in January, we'd probably be bringing it back. Or we could do a special Community Development Committee in 2 weeks.
What about if we send it back for revision? We're kind of a bit under a time constraint tonight. We send it back for revision based on the comments from tonight, and then it comes up at the next Community Development Committee meeting in early January, and then goes to council that night. So if there's any changes that need to be made after it's been brought back to the committee, we can address it at the committee level and then send those changes to the general council that same night. So it would be heard within a month. Yes.
All right. If you could then give me a formal motion of how you'd like me to amend this to bring it back to the Community Development Committee, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, so you want a motion procedurally or substantively on the ordinance itself?
A motion to revise the ordinance in accordance with the discussion that has occurred tonight, namely to remove the location. I think that's the one thing. It's up to you guys, but that's what I was hearing.
That's what you're hearing, and that's what I get as well. So I would make a motion to send this back in accordance, if I can get your language right, in accordance with the comments from the Community Development Committee this evening, to be revised and brought back at the next Community Development Committee meeting in early January. I don't know the exact date. From that meeting, it would go straight to council. Can I get a second?
Second.
January 6th.
I believe that, who was first on that motion? Hayes, second by Alderman Felix. This motion is going to supersede the previous motion to approve.
Roll call, please. Whenever you're ready, Noel. I know you're taking notes.
Of notes. Alderman Donenworth.
Aye.
Alderman Martinez.
Aye.
Alderman Florian.
No.
Alderman Felix.
Aye.
Chairman Hayes.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody, for your comments, and thank you to those of you that came out tonight to speak. Okay, still in old business. Staff has requested that we hold over agenda item 3B, excuse me, in old business. Do we need a motion for that? No. Okay. Are there any objections to it? No. Alderman Martinez. Okay. Agenda item 3C was voted on at a previous Community Development Committee meeting and is proceeding to General Council. I don't believe there's any reason for us to take it up at the committee level tonight. Council's agreeing with me, I think, so.
Yeah, it was placed on the agenda in there.
Okay, all right.
Excuse me, wait, excuse me, I like the motion to amend the liquor code from Class P to add spirits to the motion.
So I guess this probably comes on the heels of my comments at the last meeting. If you have the motion, I would suggest we just get your 2 other votes and then submit it for the next, you guys kind of write it down so we're clear on exactly what the motion is, and then just submit it, and we could take it up at the January meeting.
So yeah, if you could just provide text of the motion and 2 legislative sponsors, we can put that on agenda for.
I know that's going to have an impact on the item is on tonight's city council.
It's not on tonight's.
Oh, it's
city
not
council.
on tonight.
It's
Okay,
not-
so then we can.
Euphoria is not on tonight's city council.
Well, can we just do it verbally tonight? I mean,
No,
does
you
it have
cannot.
to be written in
No, that
stone?
would violate the Open Meetings Act, and so we need to have, it needs to appear on an agenda, and we need to have it discussed by a committee, and it can go, if there's an agreement, it can go from the committee to the city council on the same night.
Can I ask a quick question? Based on what they're trying to do, wouldn't it be better for them to apply for a bar license and act as a cafe during the day? Wouldn't it be the best based on what they're trying to do?
Class A, 1.
We would probably have to have somebody from licensing come up and speak to that.
Is it Sal here?
Itzel is here.
You know what, guys? I hate to jump in. My proposal, just given the time, and we had a community committee of the whole meeting scheduled, I believe, as well. I understand you guys want to help the applicant out here. I think we all do. Maybe we can just take this up separately, and then someone can reach out to the applicant, and we can speak to them at that time. Is that okay?
That works. We can't do anything today anyway, so it's fine.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so moving on from old business, we are now moving to agenda item 4. Agenda item, I guess, let me just get this started, and then, Noel, I'll tap you to jump in. Can I get a first and a second for agenda item 4A?
First.
Second.
Okay, thank you. I know we're going to have some questions on this. Agenda items 4A, B, and C are all together. We have members of the community that wish to speak on this topic. Before we call them up, Noel's going to give us a summary of the implications of these agenda items, and if you don't mind, just a brief history lesson on what went on at the planning and zoning level.
Sure, I'll try to cover it as quickly as I can.
Thank you.
So this item was heard and then held over the first visit at Planning and Zoning Commission because of some requests by neighbors and questions about traffic implications and that type of thing. It was considered again at the second Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, where each of the 3 items received a different vote from the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'll add that each item is contingent on the previous one, so if the first one doesn't pass, the other 2 are moot. And if the first one passes, if the second one doesn't pass, the third one is moot. So the first item is a subdivision of a parcel that is in the Research Light Industrial District on the east side of Waukegan Road. The second item is a map amendment for that parcel to change the zoning from Research Light Industrial to B2. And then the third item is associated variances for landscaping requirements and that type of thing. The first motion was voted at Planning and Zoning Commission, a tie vote to approve. So then there was a motion to deny, and that was also a tie vote. So that one moves forward with no recommendation. The second item was a majority to deny the rezoning, and the third item was a majority to approve. So that's a little bit backward of everything being moot if the first one doesn't pass. But that was the vote at Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you. And at its most basic level, this is a proposal to place a Chick-fil-A restaurant in an area that is already zoned research light industrial. Am I getting that correctly?
So the proposal isn't for Chick-fil-A. That it would be, if the zoning change happens, that would be a permitted use. So there isn't an approval of Chick-fil-A per se. It's the subdivision of the parcel, so to create an outlot basically in a large parcel, and then to rezone that outlot to allow for a quick service restaurant, which in this case is Chick-fil-A, but it would technically allow for any quick service restaurant because that's a permitted use.
Okay, thank you. So we're voting on the zoning tonight, not necessarily the approval of a particular restaurant.
Correct.
Okay.
It's subdivision first, so dividing the parcel. The second item is changing the zoning of that divided parcel, this new small lot that's created. And then the third item is for the particular proposal, the site plan as laid out would require some landscaping variances.
You are a wealth of knowledge. Thank you very much. That was very helpful.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so if I could, the developer and your team, you are welcome to present to the committee now. You guys know city council starts at 7, and we need a few minutes before city council just for everybody to get their affairs in order. So I'm going to try to move this along, but I want to make sure everybody has adequate time to speak. So if you guys would like to address us.
Chairman Hayes, should we stand and introduce ourselves in the event that there are questions?
Yes, please.
Good evening. I'm
Oh, you know what, guys? Yeah, at the microphone. Don't touch the microphone. First and last name, and then you guys can remain standing until we are sure that nobody has any questions.
Sure. Good evening, Louay Abuna. I'm a principal with KLOA, the traffic consultant for the project.
Scott Gandel, CEO and founder of Terrico.
Joe Vavrino with HR Green, civil engineer on the project.
Good evening, Jason Hill, Chick-fil-A. I'm the Director of Development Construction.
Dan Wander, one of the principals with the developer, Terrico.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. It's my understanding that you guys have a presentation tonight, so whoever is going to walk us through that, feel free to go ahead.
Sure. Again, my name is Dan Wander. We're excited to be able to present our project this evening. In addition to the people that have volunteered to speak, I also have Joe Goodman from our office, one of our lead development guys. We have Scott Quisenberry, who represents ownership here, Victoria Knudsen, who is working also with ownership on the management side of the equation. So just to give everybody, as Noel said, a little bit of background, we've been working with the ownership group now for the last several years, and they've determined jointly with them that there is excess property on their current property to allow to be able to have some additional development on that property. In addition to that, in terms of background, over the last several months, as Noel said, we've had several different plan commission meetings, and we've also been working with the tenants to address their safety and their traffic concerns as it relates to our plan. As we walk through our presentation, I'll be able to describe those in more detail. So if, Noel, if you want to flip, in addition to sort of the subdivision, just to be able to contextualize this in terms of where we have entertainment and business development associated with this lot, you can, as you can see, by taking the outlot up in that south east corner of the lot, it's approximately about 2 acres. We'd be enlarging the overall comprehensive plan to be able to include some additional commercial. And as we've done some research as it relates to what is some of the different things that the city of Waukegan is trying to do, they're trying to utilize on land that is not being utilized today for positive economic development, and try to marry and try to be able to do some positive development in what is one of the strongest retail corridors in the community. Next slide, please. In addition to that, as we talked about before, we created a plat of subdivision. Currently, the entire lot where the current tenants are located on that corner, that's all one lot. We're going to be creating an additional lot here that's going to be subdivided, that's going to have all of its own access. It's going to be completely separate from the existing development that's there. Next slide, please. As you can see here, this shows the site plan that's proposed for Chick-fil-A and its associated landscaping. One of the concerns that the tenants had here is that it was going to be adequately screened for their existing tenants as we're creating a new lot here, and we're doing that with the surrounding existing landscaping and then adding new landscaping here on this plan. Next slide, please. One of the, I think, the primary issues and the reason for this process, which we always look at all developments as an iterative process, so there's different community stakeholders and partners, the tenants that are next door, the community itself, and our tenants and the other people that are going to be using the property. And we try to do our best to be able to marry all those different things together. And we were working very hard to be able to do that as it relates to the site. So in walking through the site plan enhancements through that process, the first thing that we did was that when we really initially were going to look at this, we thought that this would be more of a conventional retail development and they were going to be things were going to be married together. But in terms of taking a harder look at that, there's going to be there may be some conflicts. And so as a result, we decided to, like I said, have a self-contained lot for the proposed Chick-fil-A, and then a new entrance area and new ingress and egress for the existing tenants, which would operate better, we think, than their existing access point. And as we discussed before, the second piece that's here is we created additional landscaping buffering in terms of the property there. Another issue that was a primary issue for the tenants was because we were going to decrease some of their parking, some people were going to have to walk further from the south lot all the way up in terms of the entrance for one of the existing tenants, Overshire. So we created a new sidewalk there to be able to create some better safety. We also created more lighting there, which was a concern for the tenants. The other thing that was probably one of the additional concerns that the tenants had is that there would be some confusion by people driving north along Waukegan Road and seeing the Chick-fil-A and then entering into the lot and then being confused and creating some kind of a traffic issue there. And we didn't believe that was true, so we did a study as it relates to that. I don't think it's in one of the slides, but it is in your packet that we have a visual that shows that when people are going north on Waukegan Road, you can't even see the Chick-fil-A, you can't see the sign, you can't see the site at all. And then once they pass that right in, right out in the middle of the property, there's an additional right in, right out into the Chick-fil-A site. So I'm going to leave the site plan up, but the next piece of the presentation really goes into some of these traffic highlights, because I think that, as we talked about before, it's one of the primary issues here. So we have a self-contained lot. Number two, one of the big concerns was how much queuing there is along North Point Boulevard. North Point Boulevard services our site, in addition to many of the tenants that are further to the south, to be able to exit that aren't going to be going south on Route 41. So there is some backup there during every light cycle, but it clears, all the cars clear during that light cycle. And as you can see on the site plan, we created an additional 230 feet of stacking, plus or minus an additional 10 cars for the people that are going to be exiting the site, which helps alleviate a lot of that traffic. In addition to that, in terms of doing a traffic study, really at the request of the tenants and to be able to prove up our case, we did a traffic study over a 3-day period at both the lunch and the evening peak times, and we did 338 cycles during that time period. That's on the next slide, just in terms of what we said. And there was never any backup that went more than one additional light cycle in terms of people being able to exit and enter out of the existing development. And then furthermore, we've been through the process with IDOT. IDOT's approved our traffic study. They've approved our right-in, right-out. We have pending the approval from the city of Waukegan. We have a permit from IDOT to be able to construct this right-in, right-out. And then the last slide that we have here, as much as Noel said that we're trying to get this map amendment approved, but we're trying to get this map amendment approved to be able to bring in Chick-fil-A into this community. They love this site. This is the site that they want to be in this community. And you're talking about really significant both community involvement and economic development by bringing in Chick-fil-A. There's going to be between 80 and 120 full and part-time employees, plus sales tax and real estate taxes over $120,000 we predict in year one in terms of new sales tax for the community by bringing in Chick-fil-A.
Thank you.
We're obviously here to answer any other questions that you may have this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for the presentation and for the slideshow. It was really helpful. Anyone else from your team have a brief comment?
We're open to questions. Just say that we've been involved in 120 development projects in 12 states. We're based in Wilmette, Illinois. We look forward to the opportunity to develop for Chick-fil-A, and this community has overwhelmingly expressed support for the project, anecdotally to us, albeit there are dissenting voices on every issue in every community.
All right, thank you so much. At this point, I'm going to invite up some of the other members of the community that wish to speak on this, and then if we have questions, committee, we can address those at that time. Same drill, if you guys could introduce yourselves.
Hi. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jo Gilley, and I'm CEO of Overture Promotions, which is, if you could go back to whoever's running the slides, to the map. We are the tenant on the north side of the building, which will be most impacted by this fast food restaurant. We are a $150 million global company. We're headquartered in Waukegan. We have an office in Sweden. We have 250 employees. 200 of them are in Waukegan. About 120 of them are warehouse employees who come in every day. And of those 120 employees, all of them exit out of a locker room on the north side of the building. So the proposal here takes away our entrance and egress, which is straight from the front of the building. That will become the Chick-fil-A in and out line, the window order, and moves it to the other side of our most used parking lot, which means that the entire building will exit through that exit unless they want to go north on 43. So that means that my 120 employees who are crossing that right turn to get to the exit are going to have to cross the traffic of Astronics and all the Overture employees who are parked in the other parking lot. I worry about that. So we are a promotional products company. We work with large corporations providing swag, basically. They come and visit our building, and American Airlines and AbbVie and LinkedIn and Blue Cross Blue Shield, and we're a serious business, and If you drive down the corridor of Waukegan Road, there are business parks, and then there's Fountain Square, this bustling, vibrant commercial community. And what you're going to do is put a Chick-fil-A, any fast food restaurant, on what is zoned for light industrial and R&D, our building. And you're going to invite all the people who are staying in the hotels and shopping at Walmart to, oh, there's a Chick-fil-A. They're not going to drive, they're going to walk, and they're going to cross over Waukegan Road at North Point, where there are no crosswalks, no walk signs. It happens now already, and there's no Chick-fil-A. So I'm really concerned about the message to our visiting customers that there's a Chick-fil-A in our parking lot, and I'm concerned about the safety of our employees and the citizens of Waukegan. Thank you.
Ron Gilly, Overture. First of all, we all love Chick-fil-A. We're not anti-Chick-fil-A. I'm a big fan. But planting it in our parking lot, I think there's better options. The gentleman spoke earlier about taking some of our parking. It's 187 parking spots in a key area. Those people are now going to have to walk, instead of 60 to 80 feet, maybe 100 feet, 400 plus yards in the winter to get to the north entrance. We had 4 slips and falls last winter. All 4 required medical treatment. 1 was ambulatory. Now we're asking them to walk 400 yards. Yes, there's a sidewalk. I do have a question to the gentleman that spoke. Can I use the laser pointer? Okay, I'll just point. I can?
Excuse me, you can use the laser pointer, but we're not going to have any dialogue back and forth between.
Okay,
the
yeah,
applicant.
all right. So that, it doesn't show on that screen. On the top right, that yellow area is their new, sorry, is the new proposed ingress egress. But it's a big hole. It's like an acre and a half, and it's 18 feet deep. So my question is that for water retention? If they fill that in, how does that impact drainage and everything else? It's surrounded by mature trees. Are we going to cut all of those down? But there's a reason why that hole is there. And the proposal is to fill that in so they can somehow create ingress and egress for entrance and exit. Now you've got 3 very close right and left turns coming out of the north side of this property. The existing, which Chick-fil-A is going to now, their proposal is to own. The middle, which is a new, going through the big hole. And then the far right, which is all semis. So we've got 3 all within 250 or 200 feet of each other, all right and left. It just makes no sense to me. You're creating gridlock and safety on that alone. So again, we want Chick-fil-A in Waukegan. I love Chick-fil-A. But there are better places very close by than in our parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Mike Kuhn. I'm the president of Astronics. We happen to be neighbors to Overture. We were actually the first tenants back in that building back in 2019. That building, some of you may or may not know, it sat fallow for many years. We moved in right before COVID, and I took over a bunch of different units in different parts of the Chicagoland area and brought them into Waukegan. And our current plan is to bring our Lake Zurich facility up to Waukegan. That's about 200 additional employees coming up to Waukegan. Okay, again, like Ron said, I have nothing against Chick-fil-A. A couple of things about Astronics, right? We're an aerospace manufacturer. We deal with Boeing, Airbus, United, American. We deal with large companies. They come up and visit our facility, especially when I close the Lake Zurich facility and I bring everybody up to Waukegan, they're all gonna come up to Waukegan, right? And that facility is a very nice facility. Our problem, and when I say ours, this is an Astronics position. We manage 1.2 million square feet of manufacturing space in the US, okay? And none of our facilities are in a mixed use type of facility like this. When we lease this, It was R&D light industry. You go to any of our facilities, there's our facility, there's other light industry, and then you go somewhere if you're gonna go eat, right? It's not a mixed use. Why is that a problem? Mixed use brings in different reasons why people are coming. Right now, when people come to our facility, they're coming to work, they're leaving work, they're coming to deliver goods, they're picking up goods, which is revenue for us, tax for the city, right? But they're not coming there to eat. I mean, it's not a mixed use. If you look at the west side of that road, that's where all the eateries and all the drinking establishments are. And I mean, I appreciate the work that the developers have done. And listen, we've been to 2 zoning board meetings, right? So Joe and Ron and I, we didn't bring a deck today because we've shown decks before. There's no need for me to stand up here and go, here's our concern, here's this. I mean, we've done that. That's why the zoning board voted the way they did. My concern is, I echo Joe's concern about safety. My office looks out at the road. I have seen people cross that road. That's, if you count the right and left turn, that's 6 lanes of traffic. Now, no one's gonna tell me that people on the west side aren't gonna see Chick-fil-A and go, let me beat feet and get over there and get a Chick-fil-A sandwich, right? It's got nothing to do whether you like it or not. That's just the reality. We have people right now with strollers and with shopping carts cross that road because there's some short-term living in some of the hotels there. We feel bad. I know Ron himself has picked people up and driven them across the street. The concern is primarily we don't like to be in mixed-use facilities. We have a long-term lease in that building, right? Astronics has made a commitment. Between Astronics and Overture, we contribute $140 million to the Waukegan and Illinois economy. The 200 jobs I'm bringing up from Lake Zurich to Waukegan, these are engineers, these are primarily white-collar workers, not part-time workers, full-time workers, white-collar positions that are coming up here. They're gonna be eating, they're gonna be spending time and money in the Waukegan area, right? And I'll tell you what my other concern is. If this is approved and this parcel, which is now light manufacturing R&D, becomes subdivided, what do I tell my CEO? What do I tell my board of directors? What's the long-term vision here? How do I know that the owner of the property isn't gonna come look for another variance in another 2 years, all right? And I've invested another, I don't know how many millions in that facility, and now I've got a Starbucks at the other corner. But it's just another 80 parking spots.
Sure,
It's
that's
just
time.
Yeah?
That's 3 minutes.
Okay, I gave everyone a little bit of a grace
yeah.
period.
So
You
that-
can
that's the
finish.
issue.
Okay, thank you, Mike. All right, both sides have had an opportunity to speak. Thanks, Mike.
Chairman Hayes, can my engineer just address one thing that was said that was patently incorrect relative to engineering?
You know, our meeting starts in 13 minutes, and we need to finish a little bit.
30 seconds.
What I want to do is, does anybody have a question for the traffic engineer? Anybody that's on the committee have a question for the traffic engineer? Okay, I'm not trying to cut you guys off, but I want to give the committee an opportunity to ask questions. So does anybody on the committee have any questions? Alderwoman Florian.
Thank you, Chairman Hayes. I was at both of the planning and zoning meetings where this was presented. I don't know if any of you watched the video. I think we need to consider that the planning and zoning people are experts at planning and zoning. That's why we have them. This project was not recommended by the committee, and I think we really need to take that into consideration. I think changing the zoning from industrial to whatever this is, entertainment or whatever we call it now, is a really bad idea. I think they've addressed the issues with their parking lot, with people crossing the street. I think Chick-fil-A is welcome to come to Waukegan. We'd love to have you in Waukegan, but just not here. We need you to go in a place where there's already other businesses like this. I think rezoning this is a really bad idea.
Thank you, Alderwoman Florian. Any other members of the committee have any questions? Alderman Felix?
Well, from what I see, I think the developers have addressed a lot of the, at least traffic issues. It's just something that you were not, I think that what's existing wasn't expecting to see. I mean, and how's the owner? Like, are they're all for it? They want to push it along? I mean, because I don't know. Don't get me wrong. I see where the issues can be, but I mean, it's self-contained parking. I mean, parking space where it's coming in and out. That was going to be my issue. Where how are they going to come in and out instead of going around? Now they can come straight from the street, right? From on 43. Is that correct?
From 43 and North Point Boulevard, if I'm reading the map correctly, there will be two entrances, one on the near the Fountain Square, which is off Waukegan Road. The other one's on North Point.
Yeah, I mean, it is a tough one. I mean, I see both arguments. I don't have no further questions.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of comments. I had an opportunity to speak with some of the business owners that are here tonight, and I think something that we should take into consideration is just big picture. Like, it seems like everyone here, the consensus is it'd be nice to have a Chick-fil-A in the city of Waukegan. I don't think there's any dispute that there is plenty of land ripe for development in Waukegan and in Fountain Square even. But I think my personal position is that we need to support the businesses that we have here, all businesses. But when you're talking about a business that it sounds like collectively employs between 400 and 500 people on that one spot, and they're doing multiple millions of dollars of revenue, hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue a year. These are people that put down stakes in the community. They invested in us. They trusted us, and we need to trust them with what they believe is the best use of the property. And we need to, like I said, just, be a good neighbor just like they've been good to us. So I want to make my first point, which is let's support the businesses that are here, that have invested in us. I think that would go a long way to building a lot of goodwill between the businesses that are here and the city council and just the city generally. Also, from the map, I think it's a little bit difficult to tell, but what the proposed development is looking to do off of North Point Boulevard is completely take away the entrance that is currently being used by these two businesses. It's removing their ingress and egress, and then that will be entirely the use of whatever the development is. I'm just going to call it Chick-fil-A. And then blow out a hole in the landscaping that's currently existing, reduce the use of the parking lot, the busiest parking lot they have right next to their employee entrance, and make that the ingress and egress point. So now the existing tenants, our existing businesses in Waukegan are going to lose their parking, right? The closest business has 200 employees. On site in Waukegan, there's 180 parking spots. Math is simple. Now we're going to further reduce the parking after they take away the Chick-fil-A parking and put the ingress and egress spot in their busiest parking lot. So it will reduce those spots and will also make it so that more cars are coming in at the employee entrance. Now, what I have been told, I don't know this personally, but I have been told that a number of employees get dropped off at work, or people are being picked up, or people are running out, or they're going for a walk on their lunch hour to get out of the warehouse, or just kind of get a break, get some fresh air, and that is heavy, heavy foot traffic in that area. So that is a primary concern. The aesthetics, one, two, the safety of all the employees, but also, why would we take away the parking that they bargained for in their lease and they expected to have to put a Chick-fil-A in when we know that there's open space for Chick-fil-A to go elsewhere? So I see this as more punitive to the existing businesses by taking away what they have so that we can put in a fast food restaurant and rezone it. And lastly, I think it's really bad precedent if we're going to support rezoning light industrial for like Alderwoman Florian said, I don't know what the zoning is, but let's just call it entertainment use or fast food. We zoned it that way for a reason, and it's being used for its intended purpose. It's not like it's sitting vacant. It's being used for the purpose for which we zoned it, and it's profitable, and it's good for the city. So why would we change that now when the very use that they seek is directly across the street? It's not like we're out in no man's land here. The very use that they want for that property is 6 lanes of traffic over. So why would we rezone it now? That's my position on it. We're coming up on city council. I don't know if we want to vote on this tonight. If there's other questions, Alderman Martinez,
But
go
mine ahead. is more like a compliment. I want to thank both of you guys. You guys both have very good, valid points, and I'm glad you guys came here and let us know how it's going to work and what are you proposing. this is going to be a very arduous decision for myself, so, but I want to compliment both parties for coming out and, you know, making it clear and very transparent of what we're expecting. Thank you.
One thing I'm going to do real quick is 30 seconds for the traffic engineer. You came out here tonight, so I want to give you your opportunity, but we got to keep it short.
Sure. The driveway that you're talking about, that we are relocating, that driveway is not impacting the parking. The previous proposal that we had did go through the parking lot, but after we met with the tenants, that driveway has been shifted further east, so it does not affect any of the parking lot that is on the north side of the building. We believe that relocating the driveway to the east is a benefit to the tenants because it moves it further away from the influence of the intersection of North Point and Waukegan. We believe that all the changes that have been made have addressed the concerns of the tenants, and the design of the Chick-fil-A lot as a standalone property will not impact the operations of the two tenants. And in fact, if you look at aerial photography or you visit the site, you'll find that the northern portion of that parking lot is not used. It's mostly vacant. So we don't believe that putting a Chick-fil-A there really impacts the operations of either tenants. The tenants will have adequate parking to meet the city code, even with the Chick-fil-A occupying the northern lot.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
One other thing, the parking lot today, including the far south tenant, which is 1,000 feet from our front door to their front door, 1,000 feet, over 3 blocks away. Okay, and secondly, that parking lot is 30% used right now. I've taken pictures throughout the day. There is so much excess parking there, it's ridiculous.
Thank you. I appreciate the last few comments.
Chairman Hayes.
No,
Like a continuance of the matter to the next meeting.
Well, I was just going to suggest we hold this over because there
take
seems
that
to be a lot of questions, and I suggest we hold over A, B, and C to give aldermen more time to ask questions and clarify their positions.
All right. So I don't think we have to vote on the holdover. Several years into this, I'm getting this right. Okay, I want to thank everybody that came out. I want to thank the developer, your professional presentation, being able to answer our questions and bring all your resources with you. I want to thank our current Waukegan businesses for coming out this evening and expressing your concerns. I'm sorry that we weren't able to vote on it tonight because of the time constraint and other matters that were up, but it will be addressed at the next Community Development Committee meeting, which is going to be January 6th. Am I getting that right? Thank you, everybody. All right, I think we got one more item up here. 3 more items. All right, so A, B, and C have been held over. Agenda item 4D. Can I get a first and a second?
So moved.
Second?
All right. Agenda item 4D is an ordinance approving a conditional use permit and site plan for a laundromat in the B3 General Commercial District at 41 South Green Bay Road, zoning calendar number 2764. Any questions? Noel, any comments?
I would just comment that this is a site where there used to be a laundromat, and the only reason it had to go through the approval process is that that use in that location lapsed for more than 6 months. So that triggers a new CUP, even though it's the same use.
Sounds good. Roll call, please.
Alderman Donenworth?
Aye.
Alderman Martinez?
Aye.
Alderman Florian?
Aye.
Alderman Felix?
Aye.
Chairman Hayes?
Aye, motion passes. Agenda item 4E. Hold on one second. Can I have a first and a second for agenda item 4E?
So move.
Second.
All right, first by Alderman Martinez, a second by Alderman Donilworth. Agenda item 4E is an ordinance creating a Class A1 tavern with outside services liquor license for 219 Sports Bar DBA TR's Front Row on Greenwood, located at 219 West Greenwood Avenue. Are there any questions to this? Alderwoman Florian.
In looking at this application, the person applying for this license currently owns the license for, well, currently has the license for Lucky Bernie's, which is in my ward. It's very near my house. And I remembered he was not the original owner of this establishment. So, and I never remembered voting to give him a new license like we're doing tonight for these establishments. So I asked the city staff to look into the situation, and he was allowed in I forget the year, 2020, 2019, was
Don't
it?
you have Itzel come up and?
Okay.
We'll have Itzel come on up.
Good afternoon, Council.
Thank you. So can you explain what happened with this license when it was renewed?
Of course. So again, this is my name is Itzel Morales, and I'm at Finance Licensing Department. And this research was done for Peter Flaveris. He is applying for 2 liquor applications tonight, but he is also the license holder for Lucky Bernie's. A research was done back to 2018 when the liquor license was issued to Lucky Bernie's, and it was actually issued to BS Waukegan LLC. We do have an application for the applicant in 2019, so he did do the application. He did submit all of the supporting documentation, did a background check. It just didn't do the due diligence of going back to City Council for a new approval for a new LLC to hold this license at this location. So I also want to clarify that as different administrations come through City of Waukegan, liquor licensing transferred from the city clerk's office to the finance department in 2021. So we have, again, I'm going to go back to a couple of years. The year that the liquor license was issued was year 2018-2019 to BS Waukegan LLC. Then it was given 2019-2020 to Waukegan Cherry LLC. And then we had 2 more renewals for year 2021, 21, 22 for Waukegan Cherry LLC. And after that renewal, that happens in May, the office transferred over to the finance department in July of 2021. So when we did our first renewal, the following spring, which was for fiscal year 22-21, we only had the records for Waukegan Cherry LLC.
Thank you. Is Mr. Flaveris here?
Yes.
I'd like to know, you're here tonight, we're applying for 2 new licenses.
Yes, ma'am.
Why didn't you do that when you bought Lucky Bernie's?
I think like Itzel stated, I just wasn't aware what the rules at the time were. And I did remember that we went through the city clerk's office at that time. And when I went asking what was the protocol and what I needed to do, whatever they asked me to do, I did it. I did the background checks and submitted an application, paid the fee, and they approved it. At that point, Lucky Bernie's was not even open at that point. We actually weren't even under construction at that point. The person who had the other license basically dropped out.
Okay, so you're saying the city clerk's office is
That's
what
who I dealt
didn't
with.
follow through with the...
That's who I dealt with. I didn't know what the protocol was.
Okay, and now this is going to be like your 5th establishment, these 4 and 5, I think,
Yes,
with
ma'am.
these
That's
2 licenses? And
that's
you don't have anybody listed as any managers, employees? You're going to run all 5 of these places by yourself?
Well, no, that's not the case. I do have employees, obviously, and managers. I have one of my general manager right here tonight with me, and we run them simultaneously with our employees. And I would say that I'm very happy and proud to have been part of the business community of Waukegan since 2019. Also happy to say I've never had one incident. I think we have a nice environment, and we're a good standing member of the business community of Waukegan. The only issue we've ever had is at a break-in at 3 in the morning when they broke into the machines, and I feel that we provide a nice, comfortable atmosphere for people of Waukegan to enjoy. And the only reason why these 2 licenses came up is because they happen to be friendly competitors that come to my establishment as well, and they told me that they were interested. One lady from Lucky Jack's is relocating, the other gentleman has moved on to other enterprises, and had said that they're going to sell their businesses. I said, well, I would love the opportunity to buy them because I live Waukegan. So that's how this all came about.
I have a question for you. Aside from you being the owner, and I assume either member and/or manager of those LLCs, do the businesses or the LLCs holding these businesses, if this is approved, have anything to do with the businesses that did not come before City Council in 2019? Are they separate?
I didn't understand your question.
Is this business separate from the businesses that didn't find their way to City Council in 2019?
Yes, yes.
Okay, separate LLCs?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
The city clerk's office in 2019 did follow the protocol of the prior administration. It did not come to the council.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. That was the only question I had. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay. Roll call, please.
Alderman Donenworth?
Aye.
Alderman Martinez?
Aye.
Alderman Florian?
Aye.
Alderman Felix?
Aye.
Chairman Hayes?
Aye. Motion passes. Agenda item 4F. Can I get a first and a second?
First.
First by Alderman Martinez, a second by Alderman Donenworth. Thanks, guys. Agenda item 4F is an ordinance creating a Class D video gaming parlor liquor license for Lucky Jack's located at 410 South Green Bay Road. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Donenworth?
Aye.
Alderman Martinez?
Aye.
Alderman Florian?
Aye.
Alderman Felix?
Aye.
Chairman Hayes?
Aye. Motion passes. There being no reports, communications, or information, after a 95-minute meeting, take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
I'm sorry, I have one quick item. I'm representing the laundromat. I wasn't called up, so I apologize. I just have an item I have to submit, the affidavit that the sign had been posted.
Oh, that sounds good. You can do it as soon as the meeting adjourns, but thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Okay. Motion to adjourn, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, why don't we take 5 minutes before we start city council? Is that okay? Yeah, we've got to set up. Okay, all right, so maybe it'll be longer than that.